2010 through 2018 Toyota 4Runner with the 4.0 liter engine, fuel pump replacement. I'm Brian Eslick from How to Automotive. I'm going to walk you step by step through the process of changing out the fuel pump. It's recommended that you disconnect the negative battery cable. After that, we're going to get the vehicle up in the air. If you're doing this at home, use floor jacks and jack stands and get the vehicle up as high as you possibly can get it. If you're doing this at home, you want to use your jack stands and place them underneath the frame rails. Now that you got the vehicle up in the air, the fuel tank and fuel pump is on the driver's side of the vehicle. We need to get this fuel tank down. The first thing we need to do is on the very front of the fuel tank is this metal shield. We need to unbolt that. There's a 12 millimeter just above the drive shaft here. So if you follow the drive shaft down and you look over the top of the drive shaft, you can see the bolt. And then we're going to go on the opposite side here on the frame, and there's three 12 millimeter bolts we're going to remove. This particular vehicle is the two-wheel drive vehicle, and there's plenty of room to get power tools and stuff in here to use. I'm using my Milwaukee ratchet here. So I will be linking up all the parts and tools that I use in this video in the description. That way, if you need to pick any of those up, you can find those links there. So once you get the bolts removed, we're just going to lower this shield down and set aside. Now that we got the shield removed, at the front of the tank, there's two fuel lines. With one has a blue connector and one has a white connector. We need to push these little tabs on the top here. You need to push them down and use a little pick tool or a screwdriver and pull this little plastic clip out of it. So when you get it pulled out, it's going to look like this. So I wrap my fingers around it and push the tabs from the back side like that. And then I used a pick tool like this in this little hole and then pulled the little locking clip down. And then you can pull the line off like this. So you're going to do the same thing for the white one. If you're worried about a residual fuel pressure, you can pull the fuse out for the fuel pump and then crank the engine until the engine stalls, and then you take the lines off and there won't be any fuel pressure. So at the very back of the fuel tank is the filler neck tube here. We need to take this hose clamp off and pop this hose off. If your fuel tank is super full, it may spill out here, so you want to have a bucket or something ready to catch the fuel. And also, once you get this off, if you want to, you can siphon fuel out with a siphon or a pump. So I have these little caps that I put over the end of the fuel tank here. That way when I'm working with it, the fuel doesn't spill out. You can use anything from a rubber glove, whatever you have, and try to cap it off. So now I've placed a transmission jack dead center of the fuel tank to balance it. If you're doing this at home, you can use a floor jack to help lower the tank up and down, especially if you put like a square piece of wood on top of the floor jack to help balance it and spread the load out. Now that we got the fuel tank supported, we need to take these straps, the mounting straps off. So if you follow them over towards the driver's side, right here on the frame, there's a 14 millimeter bolt here. And we're going to remove that, and we're going to go all the way in the back of the tank here. And there's a second strap here, and we're going to remove the 14 millimeter bolt there. To remove those bolts, I just used my Milwaukee 3/8 drive impact gun here with a 14 millimeter socket and about a 6-inch long extension. So go ahead and remove the bolts and then let the straps hang down. Next, we're going to do is go on the opposite side of the tank here and follow the straps up to the top here. We need to remove these pins. And so they have these little safety pins here. We're going to pull this little pin off, and then you're going to slide this pin out. So you just pull it out and then pull the strap off, and then you'll set the pin and the strap aside. The two straps are different, so you want to keep track of where they go. To get to the strap that's on the front of the tank, it's easier to reach over the drive shaft like this to get to the clip and pull the pin out. So now that we got the straps removed, we're going to start lowering the tank down. And as you can see here, I've already lowered the tank down a couple inches. Now at the back of the fuel tank, we need to get a couple vent lines removed. So if you look here, this corrugated vent line that's right up here. Now you're supposed to be able to squeeze the sides of the vent line here and it'll flare some tabs open and then pull off. But I've never had much luck with doing that. But when you're doing it, if you push the line inwards towards the vent and then squeeze the tab and then pull off, it sometimes will come off. So if you're like me and you had trouble getting that line off, what you can do is use a mirror to help see. And if you look on the inside there, you can see the little plastic tabs catching the inside of the little lip on the vent valve there. So what we're going to do is we're going to flare those open. And the way I did that was use a hook tool. So I got a hook tool here, and I kind of hooked it in from behind, and that flare the tab open, and then you give it a little pull, and you can pull the hook tool out and go on the opposite side and pull the little flares out, or flare the flares out with the hook tool, and then pull the hose off. So when you get the hose off, it's going to look like this. I wanted to show you the little catches that we're trying to flare open. If you look right there, you can see the little catches that we're going to flare open, and they catch on this little lip on the vent valve there. So we need to flare those to pull that hose off. Okay, now that you got this hose off, there's a smaller vent line here we need to remove. It has the same type of safety catch that the two fuel lines at the front of the tank have. So you're going to squeeze on the back side and then use a clip tool or a screwdriver and pull the little safety tab out and then pull the line off. I also lowered the tank down another inch or two to make a little bit more room to get my hands and tools up here. So once you get the safety catch flared open, you can pull the line off. After that, we need to unplug the electrical connector for the fuel pump. If you can see it back there, there's a little squeeze tab on the side of it that you're going to squeeze and then pull the connector straight up. So this is what the electrical connector looks like. I was able to reach up over the tank to get my hands on there. You're going to push the connector inwards towards the pump and then squeeze the tab and then pull off. Now the tank is free and you should be able to start lowering the tank straight down. And then once you get it clear of the drive shaft, you can have somebody help you lower it down to the ground where it's safer to work on. Now that I got the tank to the ground, I'm going to use some compressed air and blow off all the dirt and debris that's on top of the tank here. That way when we take the sending unit and pump assembly out, all this debris doesn't fall inside. So we need to detach the two fuel lines going to the top of the tank. You're going to need a pick tool and you're going to need to pick these little plastic clips out, these little horseshoe clips. So you can push from the back side with your fingers like this. I pushed the clips towards the front here and then slid the clip off, and then you can pop the line off once you get this clip removed completely. Now you can pull the hose off. So you're going to do that for both lines. Now that we got the lines removed, we need to get the lock ring off. To do that, I'm using a universal tool here that fits on these little grooves on the lock ring. This one's adjustable, so you can use it on different cars, and it has a place where you can put a socket on it and spin it off. To get it off, I had to push down with a lot of pressure on it and then use the ratchet here to ratchet it off. It did slip a few times. I mean, they probably do make a specific tool just for the Toyota fuel pump here, but the universal tool worked just fine to remove it. Also, as you start to spin this off, if you look, there's these little lock tabs on here, so you have to squeeze those in. So every couple turns, you have to squeeze these little tabs. This is a safety so that the lock ring doesn't back itself back off and have a major fuel leak. So once you get the ring removed, then you can just lift the sending unit straight up. I just took the ring here and tucked it off to the side and kind of flexed the hoses out of the way. Now you can lift the unit right out. We're going to be installing a brand new factory replacement pump on this. This pump and sending unit is made by Denso. Here's the factory part numbers here. That way, if you want to skip the middleman and see if you can get it straight from Denso, I'll try to link both of them up. The O-ring here does not come with the new sending unit. You have to order that separately. So you're just going to pick it out and replace it with a new one. So we're going to put the sending unit in. We have to put the float in first at an angle, and once it clears, then you can straighten it up and push it straight in. There's also an alignment slot that you need to line up. So if you look at the sending unit, there's this little plastic piece right here that's pointing downwards. It has to line up with the hole right here on the tank. So you'll line it up like that, and you'll push it down and spring load it. So you'll push it down, and then you'll put the ring on and tighten the ring up. When you do this, you'll have to push down with one hand and then use your other hand to spin the locking ring on. Then you can switch over to the universal tool here, slip it over, and use your ratchet to tighten it up. So I'm kind of balancing the tool and pushing downwards at the same time as I'm rotating it clockwise to lock it in place. And you'll kind of feel it once it bottoms out and it won't go anymore. Once you're satisfied that it's completely tight, then you can go ahead and install the two lines. And you're going to put the little plastic horseshoe clips back in that holds the lines in place. So you'll line them up with the slots, push them in until they're fully locked in. And then once you get those locked in, you want to give the lines a little tug to make sure that they're not going to pop back off. Now you can lift the tank back up onto your hoist and then start jacking it up into position. Once I get the tank jacked up to it's about in the ballpark, the first thing I'm going to do is plug in the electrical connector for the pump. So you should be able to jack the tank up till there's like a couple inch gap and reach over the top and then plug the electrical connector in. And I plugged it in from the driver's side of the vehicle on the back side of the tank to reach under and plug that connector in. Before I jack the tank all the way up into position, I'm going to take the smaller vent line here and push it onto the port and put the lock tab down, or push the lock tab down. So you'll push it onto the port, push the lock tab in, and then give it a little tug to make sure that the line does not pop back off. Now we can take the corrugated line here and just push it on until those little lock tabs catch. So you'll push it on, and then once you got it pushed all the way on, then you'll give it a little tug to make sure it does not pop back off. Now that that line's secure, I'm going to go around back and pull my little cap off here and then put the filler neck back on and tighten up the hose clamp that went around it. Then I'll finish jacking it up into position and we'll install the strap. So I'm installing the back one first. I lifted it up into position and put it through the little catch and then slid the pin through and then put the little safety clip back through the pin so the pin doesn't fall back out. So you just push it on. Then I rotated the strap around and into position and started the 14mm bolt on the frame here. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the front strap. So I lifted it up into position, slid the pin through, put the safety pin back on. And once the safety pin is back on, I rotated it around and started the bolt. And if you reach over the drive shaft, that's the easiest way to do this. So you're just going to run these bolts up until they're tight. Once you got the straps tightened down, then you can go ahead and remove your support jack and get that out of your way. And then we're going to put the fuel lines on the front here. We're going to plug those in. So we're going to reach up here and push them on and secure the lock tab. So you're going to push the white one on. It's the one closest to the frame rail. It's the smaller line. You'll push that one on and you'll push the tab on and lock them in place. So you push them on, push the tabs in, give them a pull to make sure they don't pop back off. Now that that's done, you can lift the metal shield that went over the front of the fuel tank into place and put the 4 bolts into it and tighten those up. Now you're ready to lower the vehicle down if you siphoned out the gas, reinstall the gas, and clear any codes you may have had. I will link up all the parts and tools that I use in this video in the description. I'm Brian Eslick from How to Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos, encourage you to subscribe, invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this. Thank you again for watching.